Hello and welcome along to Extra Time here on LCFC Radio and LCFC TV. And a very happy Christmas to everybody who's tuned in, either watching us or listening to us. We hope you had a brilliant time with your family and obviously watched Leicester yesterday in a very topsy-turvy game at the Etihad. We'll assess that as much as we can do. We'll look ahead to tomorrow's game with Liverpool, and these two will go head-to-head in our football Jenga as well at the end. We have to start in one place. In fact, before we start with football, let's do the pleasantries, Matt, and say season's greetings to you.
Yes, and to you yet again, sir. We spoke yesterday, didn't we? And wished each other well, but it's a lovely time of the year, isn't it? It takes quite a while to come and then goes quickly, doesn't it? But the football's always fast and furious, as we're about to talk about.
And Walsh, happy Christmas as well. You were due to be on with us yesterday, weren't you, on Matchday Live, but for one reason or another, you weren't able to.
No, Merry Christmas, lads. Yeah, I had a member of family, came down with it on Christmas Day. I'd seen him, obviously, the night before for quite a few hours, so there wasn't going to be any risk. There was no point. So, it was a very interesting, incredible game of football that transpired. So, I watched it last night, to be honest with you. So, incredible. That's all I can say.
You're feeling all right, though, Walsh. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. Yeah.
Good man. Right, the game then, Matt. At half-time, there was a bit of a worry, wasn't there, obviously, about what it could have turned into. In fact, it was the opposite for certainly the first 25 minutes.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable game, really, wasn't it? When you look back on it, it's one of those, you think, has that just happened? And certainly, how did it happen? You could say a little bit of a indication of how Leicester's season has gone. Maybe defensive frailties were shown, unnecessary, so sloppy mistakes, mixed with a period of excellent play when the quality was superb and the start of that second half. But ultimately, it hasn't been quite good enough, and it wasn't quite good enough yesterday. And set pieces were a large part of that, as they have been a constant theme throughout the season, really. So it had all sort of facets of Leicester's play over the campaign as a whole. But listen, people will talk, and people say the right things, and we can take even positives out of even this game, as they did against Liverpool at Anfield, albeit it wasn't an official defeat. It was a penalty shootout there. But they could demand better of themselves, really, because I think some of the situations were unavoidable. And they know the areas they need to address, really. But it's difficult at the moment, isn't it? The injury front, the illness front. You can feel for Brendan Rodgers and feel for the players themselves, but they could have helped themselves a lot better yesterday. I mean, it's an incredible game. It would go down in a lot of people's memories because of the scoreline and the nature of the twists and turns. But when they look back on it, the statistics afterwards, not a massive indication, I know, but in terms of shots at goal or just shots generally, and a dangerous situations, Leicester weren't too far behind Man City. They were in terms of possession, but it was isolated instances that really let them down, because Kasper Schmeichel, believe it or not, was not peppered in his goal. He didn't have to be heroic. He did make a couple of excellent saves. But just generally, there's room for improvement. Too much room for improvement from Leicester's own performances.
Yeah, it's a good point, I think, that Matt makes, Walshy, about the game itself and the fact that Leicester did miss some good opportunities as well, and they got unlucky as well. James Maddison hit the bar. Kelechi Iheanacho forced a good save out of Edison. Mark O'Brien had a chance with a header as well. It could easily have been 6-6.
Basically, there were 9 goals in this game. There could have been another 6, without a doubt, from the other chances, either way. But, like Matt's just touched on, with the illnesses, the injuries to key defenders, it's just getting worse and worse in that area. I feel for Brendan Rodgers now, because this isn't normality for him. He's never experienced anything in his life, I'm guessing, as tough as this, to juggle around this team in Europe, in cup competitions, in 9 games in December, and sometimes I think people don't understand what's going on inside a football club. And there's the difficulties that he's having to overcome is unfair, really. But he's not, he's always very, very good in the press. He's not one to whimper and hide, and he'll admit things if they're wrong. And I do feel for him, like Matt just said. I really do. I think that he's a wonderful manager, and what he's done already. But this season and now, what we're talking about, that game when we went into it, he's looked at that, at how he can counteract Man City, and I think he's probably thought, look, this is going to be, without certain personnel in this team, we ain't going to win this game. But I'm guessing he wouldn't say that to the players, but he's in his own mindset that he needs to look at 4 or 5 other games that are going to be coming up and think, right, this is where I can take some points from. But saying that, we are capable on our day to beat anyone. Now, when you've got these difficulties, and when I saw the starting lineup yesterday, I thought, flipping heck, this team against what Man City were putting out could be a difficult 90 minutes for all them 11 players on that pitch, because it was a under-strength team, as everybody knows. It's a weakened team. People can look at how he plays his tactics, how he does this, how he defends and whatever. But at this moment, that group of lads had to go out there and give the best, which they did. And unfortunately, Man City, you're playing against such a difference in class that, the movement, everything about them, the work ethic, the way that they press, was going to be difficult for technically through the difference in class. But we sort of, another side of us, when he tweaked things at half time, went to a 5. It certainly, Man City were on. I see, you could see Pep's face. He was worried. It went to 4-3. It was incredible, and yet, we're nowhere near what we can play like. We've got players, like I said, all in that defensive area, without Evans, without Soyuncu, Fofana. We can go on. The list goes on and on and on. And it just seems a little unfair to me. But we've got to get on with it. We've got some favourable games coming up, and but that was, it could have swung our way if we'd have kept at it. And just like Matt said, we're looking at errors, in individual errors. We're looking at key mistakes, but can I just go on to the defending, the corners and things, because it's getting a bit.
Hey, we'll come on to it. We'll
come on to it because I wanted to say something. Yeah, which
we'll do it in just a moment. But let's concentrate quickly on the positives, on Leicester's comeback, Matt, in that second half. Excuse me. James Maddison was integral to it, wasn't he? In the way that Leicester were able to get back into that game.
Certainly was. Yeah, he's been in top form, hasn't he, over the last few games, really. The amount of goal situations that he's involved in, assists or actually scoring himself and being part of the build-up and creating, with some real quality supply to his fellow striking teammates, but with some real quality finishes as well. It's exceptional, the standard that he's playing at the moment and the things that he's producing. Listen, it was difficult for everyone in the first half to get any sort of control on the game, and Leicester just looked a bit short all round in that first 45 minutes because of the quality that Walsh just mentioned there that they're up against. But second half changed it, Brendan, didn't he? And in hindsight, he'll probably wish that he'd started with that system because playing that back 4 was courageous. He wanted to be able to pose a threat to Man City as well, and understandably so, but they looked as if it was going to be difficult from the off, didn't it? And the other system in the second half worked better, and it certainly worked for James Maddison. Albeit he was in a sort of uncustomary role on the right-hand side of midfield, but he allowed himself to drift central and he could pick up the ball. Man City taking the foot off the gas a little bit, but Maddison took full advantage of that, didn't they? Superb. Both feeding other players and obviously finishing off goals himself, getting in advanced positions. And he needed someone to be brave, to get on the ball and do something different, because I thought Leicester were a little bit nervous, understandably so, not jumpy on the ball, because you're so worried about getting caught in possession that the ball's just played forward early too much. And it was wave after wave of attack, wasn't it? James Maddison, in particular, took it upon himself to be brave on the ball. A couple of little touches where, if he got it wrong, could have been costly. Especially with the scoreline at 4-0, it could have all of a sudden looked horrific. But such as his class, yeah, he got himself out of tight positions, played other people in, or he got himself advanced and linked up. And yeah, he looked like a real player, didn't he? A proper player. For the duration of that second half, really. He saw his frustration later on, understandable, because Leicester worked so hard, got themselves into some sort of position, some sort of contention for the game, and then the Achilles heel came out again, didn't it, with the set pieces. As you say, we'll speak about that in a bit, most likely. But James Maddison can be proud of his performance, certainly in the second half. But ultimately, it's a team game, isn't it? And Leicester will generally be disappointed, but it's quite reassuring that you've got Maddison playing at that level, because you think sooner or later he will help Leicester come through this sticky patch.
Yeah, go on, Walsh. Set pieces then. You wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I did. And, I can see exactly what Brendan's trying to do now. He's zonal marking, but he's also now looking at markers, which was important. And I think that can work. That can counteract this problem that he's got. But what I felt was that there were mismatches with who was marking who. You've got Diaz and Laporte, the best two centre-backs, best two headers of a ball in Man City's team. Yet we had Tielemans and Iheanacho, which the plan was just to hold them. And then literally they did, and it caused us a problem, because it forced the penalty against us with Tielemans holding clearly onto his player, and Iheanacho started it. They're not looking at these players now. They're not looking at where the ball is now. They're just holding the man, and you can't do that. So for me, Vestergaard, he's the main header of the ball. He should have been marking Diaz or Laporte. It doesn't matter. You'd block them two out. They were, Man City, you could see what they were doing. They were playing deep corners. They were getting so much joy from it. Every time there was a clear header. So there was a mismatch. But I can understand where he's trying to get it right. He's trying to zonal mark with the best three headers of the ball he's got. And if they hit that area, you've got to attack the ball and win it. But we're not. And it's a standing jump. I clearly, everybody can see it now. And it's becoming a bit of an earache for me now, because everyone's saying, look, Leicester at corners. But listen, we've just gone beyond that normality, like I said, with a few injuries. And you know what? When you look at Ricardo, I'm just digressing here. When you look, there's been two tackles that have gone in. One on Fofana at the start of the season. Was that a friendly game?
Yeah.
Was it?
Villarreal.
And that was a shocking tackle that went under the radar. The other tackle by Morton on Ricardo against Liverpool, I thought was a bad tackle, and that went more or less under the radar, really. It didn't even get a red card. You've got a guy out now who's just come back. I feel sorry for Ricardo. He's had some really bad luck and bad injuries, and that was horrific. It really was. But going back to the individual errors, it's just becoming a bit. It's dragging on now. It's dragging its feet. But when we get this team back together, hopefully after Christmas, I think there was a lot of positives to take from that match, without a doubt. I mean, for me, like you say, you were talking about Maddison. He was absolutely instrumental in how he played. He really was. I thought Iheanacho, he was playing coming off deeper than he probably should have done, but he was playing some through balls that was, the weight of the pass, the vision, and his understanding was terrific. And it caused Man City all kinds of problems, and they didn't really, at that point in the game, I went to 4-3, it could have swung our way, and you've got to give that team some credit and the manager about the total vision on how they could have got back in the game, because at 4-0 it could have gone to 8 and 9. That's what I was fearing. I really was, because they were rampant with Man City, and they had that much pace and that much clever play that you could sometimes can't live with it. But we tweaked it, changed it, and we've got to take some credit out of that game in the end.
The set pieces, obviously, Matt, frustrating enough as they are, and that's one negative. I mean, there's a lot of positives, as Walsh just said, to take. Quite a few negatives, obviously. It's just the timing of that, the fifth Man City goal, that was the most frustrating, I think, given it was, again, from a corner, because Leicester had got themselves back into it at 4-3, and almost immediately after the third Leicester goal, when the momentum was all with them, that's when Man City then went up the other end and scored that goal.
Yeah, it was a touch deflating, to say the least, and no more so than for the players. I mean, they must be frustrated, and I think you saw that Maddison really towards the end of the game. He was bickering with the referee, and maybe sensed that it was a missed opportunity to achieve something incredible. We obviously wouldn't have even considered it at half time, and the one goes in, etc., and you're having a little, not really paying that much attention. You're saying, yeah, good goal, well finished. It would have been nice to see some of that in the first half, which there were instances where Leicester got forward, as you mentioned there, Maddison and hitting the bar, and Perez having an opportunity. But then the second goal goes in, and you have a look around, something could be on here, and the third, and your eyes are wide open, aren't they, thinking, what are we watching here? And as a player, you'd have sensed that on the pitch, because Man City were ruffled by it, because they didn't look particularly potent, did they, in the second half? And like I say, they'd taken the edge off their game, and it was less incisive. But it's hard to recapture that. And Leicester didn't really force them to have to test themselves to get back into that gear that they were in the first half, because of the set piece situation. Again, I mean, basically half the goals that Leicester conceded, three out of 6, were linked to set pieces, very directly. But both headers in the second half, almost sort of carbon copies. And yeah, somebody are joking almost, but it's not that funny. But before when the ball goes out wide, there we go, and you expect him to concede almost. And Man City are not even that strong at set pieces. Ordinarily, they play it short and try and engineer something else. But as Walsh mentioned, there is a bit of a mismatch, and Vestergaard and Amati were sort of bypassed, weren't they? The two main threats were deep, far post, and it's too simplistic to hurt Leicester at set pieces, unfortunately. But the way that Tielemans and Iheanacho are defending, I don't know if they're instructed to do that. I'd be surprised if they are. You can say get in their face or get your arm across. You can't put two arms round and not looking at the ball. You're asking for trouble. And, 2 penalties. I mean, both the goals in the first half that weren't penalties were avoidable. Quite simple sort of lack of positional sense on a couple of occasions. And then the 2 penalties, again, they're normally avoidable, not always, but in this instance, both of them were. So strangely, when you look at it, Leicester weren't actually pulverised in this game, like the scoreline suggested at half-time. They were right in it. Halfway through
six goals, Matt. You'd think it is a pulverising, but
yeah, exactly.
We've been on the end of a 6. I've been on 7, I think, at Sheffield Wednesday once, and yet this was a different scenario altogether in the way, because I think the time when we were 7, I think it's 7-1. There was a 6 at Newcastle. I remember we were 5-0 down at half time. I think it ended up 6-1. This was a different game altogether. And like I say, you've got to look at some of them positives. And Vestergaard, we look at the individual errors. If we could cut them out, I felt sorry for him coming into a game like that at Man City after not playing for a few weeks at least. It was going to be difficult for him, and he just lost his bearings with that one. He started badly, but he came stronger in the game. He got into it. He didn't let it get to him, which was good. And you're playing against the Man City team. They're scoring nearly 4 games a game in the last 6 matches. The stats tell you that they're scoring nearly four goals a game. Well, they are 4 goals a game. It's incredible. So it's no mean feat that we've lost by 6 goals. It doesn't matter that, because look, you look at the squad, you look at that starting lineup. When every Leicester fan looked at that, they must have been a little bit concerned, because it wasn't what we were used to and what we know we can play. But unfortunately, we have to, you've got to protect the welfare of the players with how many games they're playing with. Also, now, these times, I've never seen football like this. It's, all the managers are saying something about the welfare of the players. And, Brendan does get on with things, though, Matt, doesn't he? He takes it on the chin. He never complains about these tackles that have caused us, key players to be out. He gets on with it, and somehow he has to put an 11 out there that he thinks can go and win a game of football, and also look at the projected games coming up to see how he can really get the maximum points out of the next 6 games that we've got coming up.
Quick word, Walsh. We spoke about James Maddison as an individual. Ademola Lookman impressed as well, didn't he, yesterday?
He did, yeah. He played a lot better than in the last game that I saw him in, and I think his duties off the ball, when we've not got it as well, were better. But going forward, he's got, in that very first game that he played, I remember looking at him thinking, hey, this guy can play, and he can. He's on his day, but he's got to just get them levels to that standard that he got to in that game, and things will happen for him, because he's certainly an exciting, direct kind of player who's got plenty of pace. And you look at Daka when we've got him, but things are going to impact us again, maybe with the African nations. It's just another obstacle we're going to have to get over. So, when we look at Liverpool, you take Liverpool out of the equation on the 28th, then you've got a run of games that you think, right, there's an FA Cup chance, opportunity. So we're still in that. We own that FA Cup, and we've got a run of good games that that are winnable games that could accumulate a lot more points. And again, it's just just settle the ship again, because like I said, it's just crazy times at the moment.
Going into that game then with Liverpool on the 28th, or tomorrow as we're speaking now, Matt, do you think Brendan Rodgers will stick with what he did in the second half at the Etihad? Because obviously that system worked better on the day there, didn't it, in the second half when he changed things? Will he go into the game with Liverpool doing that, do you think, or will he revert back to the 4?
I think it's highly likely on the back of yesterday's performance, the way the game went. I think it's highly likely he'll persevere with the 3, because a different proposition, aren't they, Liverpool? Like, similar system, if you like, pretty much 4-3-3, full-backs get forward, etc. But a different style of football. But whichever way, I think Leicester, with personnel they've got available, I think Brendan Rodgers will look at it and think, we need to be a little bit more secure, first and foremost. Give ourselves some sort of opportunity to build a platform in the game, and then play from there. Because I thought he was quite brave. I wouldn't say wrong at all. When people saw the team sheet, you were a bit concerned, but not necessarily because of the system. It was because of the threadbare nature of the starting 11 and what it could be if things were more normal, shall we say. But you worried about them being exposed. I did worry about them, about the wide players, mentioned there, Walsh, Lookman and Perez. Perez came off at half-time, didn't have any effect on the game, but wasn't just his fault. But I thought, because they've had big jobs to do working backwards, it's not their natural game. and I thought that might be an issue, as it proved to be. But with the back five, if you like, it seems a bit ultra defensive, isn't it? 5-4-1, pretty much, wasn't it? And that was to sort of shore things up as much as anything. And things worked as well as they could, didn't they, for 20, 30 minutes, with Leicester winning the second half 3-0 at one stage. But Leicester are good at that. They've got the players to do that, suddenly break. And they've got good creative midfielders who can link up. I think against Liverpool, they've just got to be a little bit realistic and think there are games. I've mentioned it before. I thought, God, let's be a bit courageous. And against Liverpool's Man City, go and test yourselves with a full strength team and just see exactly how good you are. Without tactics maybe being too much of an emphasis. Without being naive. But I think tomorrow against Liverpool, you've got to take the sensible perspective, try and be secure first and foremost, and just be clinical in the opportunities that come your way. And Leicester know that they're capable of that. They showed it yesterday against Man City. Liverpool, you would imagine, would not be as open defensively, but that doesn't mean Leicester can't hurt them. And I think it's highly likely that it'll start with the back five, a 5-4-1 that can easily turn into a 3-4-3 as you make advancements against the opposition.
Do you know what, Matt? I wrote some notes down today, and that 5-4-1, you're right, out of possession, it worked effectively. The shape, and it was much more solid. And I've just looked in possession. We were more or less a 3-4-3, like you say, or even a 3-5-2 at times. But then wing backs were allowed to push further forward. You've got three at the back in a sense, but without the ball, it was a 5. And with the ball, we're very good at counter-attacking teams, and that's worked well. So I guess it's a similar proposition with Liverpool, the way that they attack. We've got to be cautious. The key for this game is personnel, who's available, because it could change his mind in the way he thinks, because of the defensive duties in that team that has been over the start of the season to now has been just ridiculous with the amount of numbers going down injured. So I guess it's who's on that treatment table and who's not. It's like in the old days though. He's got to deal with it, as Brendan, but he's been very unlucky with I must say. But this is a big game, Liverpool, and if he does play that way, then we've got a chance. And so Mr. Vardy has had time to recover fully, and we know what he can do against Liverpool as well.
Yeah, Liverpool, Walshy, though, have had a few days off, haven't they? They didn't play on Boxing Day. How much of an effect might that have, do you think?
Do you know what? As players, you want to keep them games going when you're on a momentum. Like they are. You saw against Leicester, they almost played a third team. It was unreal in a fashion. But they got lucky in that game. Really, they really did. They scraped through by the skin of the teeth, really. And we should have seen that game through, but in the end we didn't. But it is what it is at the end of the day. But now you're going to see a Liverpool team that's then at this stage in the season now. I always judge it. Christmas period is so important for them. If they're going to win a title, they're going to need to be beating Leicester. Tomorrow they're going to have to, but I guess that we'll have a nice solid shape that we had like in that second half yesterday, and it could be an interesting match. I don't think there's going to be like a rush of 6-3 goals in this one. Although if we do make errors, then it's going to be a rough day. But no. It's a tough match. It's a game we can do well, and I think you've got to look at that structure of that second half against Man City and take some confidence from that.
You suspect, Matt, that the fans will be right up for this, the Leicester fans, that is, after what happened at Anfield. It'll be about a week ago, won't it? Just under a week ago.
Yeah. I imagine there'll be
just in the sense that there was a little bit of Leicester fans will feel that there should have been a red card for Morton, as Walsh has mentioned. Jota, even with the elbow.
Yeah, both valid points, and well worth discussion from Leicester's point of view, aren't they? But sort of typical of the way things are going at the moment, I suppose. you know, making situations even more difficult. I think, there's a little bit of rivalry or sort of tension maybe between the supporters to a degree for whatever reason. And I think just, the sort of, not the unjustness, I think that's too strong a word, because you create your own situations, but what Leicester were, the Leicester supporters and the players be frustrated, won't they, the way it happened. But you have to look after your own business. You know, conceding so late in that game, eventually pressure told a bit, and what Leicester should have dealt with. They should be frustrated at themselves, really. I thought they should have dealt with that second half a bit better than they did. Liverpool made the change, but I think as much as anything, the supporters be up for it, because they realise that the players need some assistance. They need some help at the moment, because it is stretched to the limit, the squad at the moment, and it's a difficult period all round. But the supporters, I think they're honest enough and intelligent enough to realise, the reasons why, certainly in part, that things are as they are, and supporters play their part hugely. And tomorrow is certainly one of those occasions, because it's going to be a test. Leicester are going to go into the game as underdogs, pretty much, because of the situation, because of the current run, because of the opposition. Whereas in times gone by, you thought maybe Leicester are genuinely playing on an even level here. But tomorrow, that's probably not the case. They're going to have to really give their all, produce the best football that those players are capable of, and the support and encouragement of the fans will be vital as well to drive them onwards, because it's going to be a tough old shift for them tomorrow afternoon.
At this stage of extra time, Walshy, we always get our guests to pick out one other game that took place in the Premier League over the weekend or on Boxing Day that caught your eye. Any of the results in particular, apart from obviously the Leicester-Manchester City one that stood out to you?
I think you've got to look at Arsenal. That 5-0, 5 goals, and the rejuvenated Arsenal, and you can see how good they are in form. The form guide has changed now, and how Arteta's gone through a stage of that initial kind of problems that he had, and the winning over the fans was difficult for him. He went into that club and they needed that many changes and things, and he seems to have got a real good hold of it now. And there was times when all the fans were wanting him out at one stage, because of what was happening. They didn't see his vision as the right philosophy for the club. But he has really showed them now his intentions, and that he can. He's a very, very good manager. We all knew that, with Pep, he was a great number 2, but to become a number 1 manager now, and he's certainly showing that at the minute. So I've got to look at that 5-0. You look at there were so many goals, weren't there, in the Premier League? It was ridiculous. I think Chelsea scored 3-1, wasn't it? So there was abundance of goals, and our match was the biggest one, unfortunately. 6-3. It's a hell of a lot of goals, and let's hope that now we can get these 2 games out of the way and try and nick something off Liverpool tomorrow. And then the confidence, it's surprising what confidence can do for the whole morale of the football club. And it will happen. And Brendan, we can't start saying, right, there's rumblings now of Brendan Rodgers out, and now I don't like to hear that, because of not only is what he's done, what he's going through, and what he's and he'll come through the other side, because he's a good manager. So onwards and upwards, we've got to be positive, and we're riding a storm at the minute that's too strong for us. It's like tidal waves just battering us with a different scenario every week. There's something to contend with. So it's the testing, the worst, the hardest time I've ever known a manager at Leicester City have to overcome.
What
other game, Matt, took your eye?
Yeah, goals flying around everywhere, weren't they? One that caught my eye, and I was sort of slightly taken aback by it was Southampton 3-2 away at West Ham. They're a funny side, Southampton, aren't they? They seem doomed on numerous occasions. You think, right, this is eventually the time that all those departures to other clubs of their key players are going to take their toll. But they keep going. Fair play to Hassan Hutton. He keeps his players motivated. Certainly, they've done a good job in just staying in the league, pretty much, and they play some reasonably attractive football as well. But to go to West Ham are quite interesting in that situation there because they've been so good, haven't they? And I suppose you could equate it a little bit to Leicester's situation, where the word overachieve has been mentioned. But Leicester have been playing at a level for the majority of the last 2.5 seasons even. West Ham, maybe not quite as long as that, but they've been equally impressive, haven't they? But now they're in a sticky patch. Maybe the depth of their squad is being tested. And that might be part of the issue, but it'd be interesting to see how David Moyes reacts with his players, how his players react. Because Leicester have got a similar challenge in some ways, although more extreme on the injury front, as Walsh just mentioned. But yeah, it's just not easy to turn things around a little bit because I bet they'll be looking around thinking, well, we're not doing anything much different than we did before. All of a sudden, they're not getting results. Southampton shouldn't be beating West Ham away from home, but they have. A little surprise turn up for the books. But I thought that was a very unusual result, really, for the way things have gone over the period, over the last 6 months or so. You'd never pick that one out of the hat.
Well, it looks as if you both have had an eye on the other games over Boxing Day, which is important for our football Jenga, which we do at the end of the show. Walsh is shaking his head already.
I only watched 2 of the games.
I fancy you, Walsh, maybe not then if you've only watched 2. There were 28 goals across the 6 Premier League games based on Boxing Day. So I want you to take it in turns, please, to name any player that scored a goal in any of the Premier League games that took place on Boxing Day. And Matt, because you are to my left-hand side, as I look at it, you can go first.
Well, are we including Leicester players?
Yep, any game, any Premier League game.
I'm going to have to go Leicester games on this one initially. Must admit, scorelines, I didn't look at individuals too much, basically, I'm afraid. Naughty, James Maddison.
Walshy?
Lukaku.
Iheanacho.
Saka.
I'm going nice and steady. Lookman.
I'm just trying to think of all these 5 Arsenal goals. Lacazette.
Mahrez.
Smith Rowe.
Hey, well done, Walsh. You did watch that game.
I did.
Hey? Certainly
I've got
did.
another one as well.
Certainly did. Laporte.
Tierney.
There's only 2 games involved here, isn't there?
Oh, I've got another one. I thought of another.
Sterling.
Yeah. Kane.
De Bruyne.
Moura.
Matt's in trouble now. He said all the Leicester to Man City players.
I have, haven't I, now?
I can remember these goals, yeah.
Oh, me.
I'm guessing a few now, though.
Right, I'm going. Jorginho.
I watched, who was the other goal for Tottenham? Son.
Correct.
Oh, Reece James.
Morpay. I watched this game.
Good shout.
This is very good standard, this.
All right. Considering I haven't even looked at any of the goal scorers, we've done all right. And I didn't watch the game. Where are we going? Which way am I going to go? Oh. Oh.
He's out. That's it, isn't it?
Hold on. Let's see if we can get one.
I'm going. No, it should be with Chelsea. I think Steve scored the third goal for Chelsea. So put us in.
No. So Walshy, you get this to win it.
Trossard.
Well done, Walshy.
I watched them. Did 2 terrific goals by Brighton. So that's the only reason why I've won the. I was going to guess on. Who else was I going to guess on? Oh God. I was just going to. Oh no, I've lost the plot.
Well, it doesn't matter. You won anyway. Walshy.
Yeah.
To be fair,
that's not so often I win, Matt.
You've only missed 6, so you missed. You didn't get any of the Southampton West Ham games, so that's Antonio Bednarek, Ben Rama, El Yunusi, and James Ward-Prowse.
Well, that game that caught my eye, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you should have done Ward-Prowse
about a minute ago. And to be fair, you also missed Ilkay Gundogan as well, so you did miss the one of them.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But no, well done.
I'm struggling without the Leicester game.
I was going to say, Walshy kept naming the other ones, leaving all the City and Leicester ones.
Yeah.
I know. Do you know what, mate? I thought I'd do that. I'd be generous to you and just give you, because I wanted to have a think and for later on in the game, but it didn't work. It didn't go to the plan in the end. It did do, but it shouldn't have worked.
You won anyway, Walshy. So well done. Right, enjoy the rest of your time off between Christmas and New Year. Matt, you'll be working the Liverpool game, of course, tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm working tomorrow.
You'll be there as well, so we'll see you both there tomorrow then. And everyone listening again, have a nice couple of days more off. I think it's bank holiday, isn't it? Today and tomorrow.
Yeah, so, it is. Yeah, that's right.
Enjoying that at home. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and for watching, and cheers to these two as well.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.